Truth, logic, action, power. It's the GreggHoush Show here on New Revolutionary Radio. From the Leonard School in Malden, Massachusetts, Gregg and company are here to bring a sense of ethics to your news. Whether it's politics, activism, or current events, we always seek to inform and never to deceive. Let's start the show.
Hello, and welcome to episode 29 of the GreggHoush Show. It's me, GreggHoush, and my wonderful co-host, Kayla Avery.
You said it right.
And, of course, joined by, let's go this direction. Let's go Derek. Derek down there on the end.
I gotta do my own whooping right now because I know she's saving it for Mac
And,
right now.
It's the Mac Daddy!
It's the Macinator!
It's the Mac back in
Mac
Mac!
and
He's the
Mac.
Mac truck coming your way!
It's
He's
the Mac stop.
cheesiest!
You don't go past the Mac stop.
Okay.
Mac stop's behind the batter. It's the Mac stop.
I think our engineer just turned Kayla's mic down.
They actually quit.
And I think Mac just gave me like a look of like you're dying.
Yeah. No, you're dead to me is more what that was. It was not you're
LinkedIn,
dying.
so.
It's,
Yeah, but don't worry.
So
it gets better every time.
As per usual, we come into a week with, again, nothing to talk about.
It's been a boring week. I really can't think of anything that's happened.
You picked a bad time to start the show, really, is what happened.
Yeah.
I know, we really should have
obviously.
waited a week to see
like
if
a slow
anything
news
like
quarter.
newsworthy was like happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of honestly wishing it was a little more boring because I'm getting burned out on the news at this point. Like watching it, I should say, like having to keep up because normally I could keep up with a couple hours a day.
Also, it's
Now I have to keep up with like 8 hours a day just to barely stay on
You know
top
who
of
also agrees with that? The news.
The news.
They
also,
do not
it's,
look like
it's
they're enjoying
really
it.
hard for us to like try and talk about any subjects in depth that aren't recent because like there's so much time going into, oh God, what the hell happened now?
Yeah, just
that, like, we
today.
can't even prepare stuff on older things.
And that's just what we are told about. Like, can you imagine all the fires that are getting put out on a daily inside the White House and the administration? Because they're saying that like Kelly and Mattis and like Miss McMaster like are like keeping the country from like total chaos. That means that they're like constantly like in a state of like horror and shock, like trying to contain
This
him.
is like one of the first times in history when we've run into the 24-hour news cycle, literally having 24 hours worth of news every day.
Yeah, the
Instead of
24-hour
like
news-
2 hours somehow stretched.
And that's because nobody's controlling them. The generals aren't, or he wouldn't be making the North Korea comments and all that either.
Oh yeah, no
no.
one's in
It's
charge
It's like we
of
want that
man.
to be true, but
Kelly wants us to believe, but it's not true.
That is just him trying to like keep the country balanced enough. Like, guys, don't worry, I'm keeping the wheels from coming off so far. Like,
I don't know. It's really enjoyable, like reading all the different like leaks that are coming out. Like, well, by leaks,
Nonstop.
By that I mean like the actual White House staffers who are just talking to Politico at this point.
Yeah.
Like it's not even leaks; they're just constantly talking to Politico to tell them what's happening. And like they're saying that like people like the way like they just pray that like Trump will forget things that he said to do, or they just like will like try to distract him with colors. And I'm like, can you like, what the fuck does it feel like for like a person who's like probably like bottom of the totem pole, like whoever's in charge of that file that he like who has to present to Trump like the good
Every
news
morning of the good news.
we
Yeah,
hired
like-
the guy who did Barney inside of the suit for that long, and that's why like the colors and the music and stuff distracts him. But it's not working
Like,
forever.
I would love to know like what internally is going on.
There's gonna be a book. There's gonna be a
Yeah,
book.
there
The
has
person who puts that together is gonna put something out there for us. I mean, yeah, how could you not? It's nuts. This is like, I think, the first time in history that you've got a 50-50 shot of hearing Wolf Blitzer say breaking news and it actually being breaking news instead of something that happened 8 hours
actually
ago
upsets me more
or
than the other
yesterday.
or 5 weeks ago that he's still obsessed with.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just absolutely nuts. So this week, of course, and over the last couple of weeks, we've got Pence going to a football game as one of the highest paid protesters in the world.
Not a human, not a real human. He's
What
AI.
a drama
He's
queen.
AI.
Like
AI.
he's not even a good actor at this point. Like he can't even act like he was offended.
The idea that, we're supposed to believe he thought he might get to stay for the game is, even in his own, weird world, completely defeated by the fact that he told the press to stay by the van because he'll be right back.
Stay in the van.
Yeah, like he'll be right back.
And he also took a plane the opposite of direction and what he was scheduled to go to.
Yeah, so $250,000 worth of flights there to
taxpayer dollars
to make a statement that is not
Bullshit.
something I think the majority believes in.
It's also
that
a bullshit
$250,000
statement.
only covers the flights. It doesn't cover all the security costs.
Well, it's a good
and
thing we
all
didn't waste
that.
the $250,000 on all those statues they wanted to fix before
It
we
was
had it for the
probably
flights,
closer to
you
$1
know?
million for that whole event.
Yeah, for
Possibly more.
a minute and a half.
And then him to share on
Sensational.
Twitter that photo that was from like years ago.
From
but say it was-
2014, from 2014, he recycled a photo of him and his wife at a Colts game, which is fine. You can be at a Colts game, Pence, but just how about you just use
Stop
a real
lying.
but yeah, use a real photo. Like, yeah. I mean, the only good thing about the Colts game was that I had Jacoby Ellsbury on my fantasy team, and he actually did really well for me.
I think fantasy football is ruining
Has he
football.
done well for you in the past?
Well, I mean, it was the first time I picked him up because like
Okay.
I had Mariota and he got really hurt,
Dynamic
and like
player.
I have a
Dynamic
crippling gambling problem, Greg. So
but
like,
it's mostly horses. Like,
and, yeah,
supposed to
and
work.
well, and during the football season, it's like DraftKings. Like I love to spend money, and I apparently I'm really good at losing it.
so what you not only work for, but also win on the horses, you then spend on the football.
And back on the horses.
And then it's just kind of
it's just a result.
it's revolving, except
like-
like it keeps getting smaller and smaller as it goes around in the circle.
Well, like sometimes it has good payouts, and then like most of the time I like just spend that immediately, and then I have to
Right,
put
you put it right back in.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like
Typical gambling.
So like
yeah.
So like to probably the normal person and the football as a sport. Yeah, I'm sure fantasy football is ruining it. But for people like me who are dead on the inside, it's making it a lot more fun.
Yeah, dead on the inside.
So,
Good times. So there's Pence
but also like
giving
fuck Mike
everyone
Pence.
$1 million chuckle.
He's not a human.
There you go.
He's something else. Haven't figured it out yet.
This morning, Trump signs an executive order.
What did he sign exactly? Can we like?
It's
doesn't-
really like short, small, itty bitty
One of those
little things.
placemats from like
It's-
the 99 or something. It's
So they wanted the short-term health plans brought back. They wanted all these other little pieces that they were hoping would come across in the big bill that didn't, all just a little finer points. The ability, which is strange, the ability for people to buy insurance across state lines, which was already a thing, but that's in there.
But they don't like insurance companies don't do because it's just
Yeah.
not feasible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It was already allowed also, but
Right.
it's in there.
Yeah, so I was trying to read up on this earlier, but then I got sidetracked with my own.
And then this way cheaper insurance for shorter time periods will really help the people who just need it right now, but doesn't help anyone who's got long-term health problems.
So okay, hopefully you were able to do some research. I was not, unfortunately, before the show. I was distracted. But so shorter time periods for insurance companies. The deadline for insurance premiums was September 27th. How is this helpful?
It's not at all helpful.
What made you think it was supposed to be helpful?
but they believe
what
that.
part of this executive order is actually going to be in effect?
So Kelly said earlier today, and so did Huckabee, that they believed that actual health care will probably not pass until the spring. So like a full plan, which of course it won't pass then either, I don't believe.
No.
No,
But that's what they believe.
It's not. It definitely won't pass until
So
after the
this was
2018
their stopgap
midterms.
measure. This was their let's get something done so we can say, really, it does almost nothing. It takes months to go into effect. And by the time it goes into effect, it's almost
Yeah,
time
because the
to have
insurance-
the other votes.
Because the
Well, it
insurance companies can't use it for next year because they have to already set all their pricing.
Well, I mean, I hardly think that's the biggest issue. You could say, well, in a year, but in a year it'll be just as useless, even though it has gone into effect.
Yeah, it does. It does nothing but cause
It's- yeah.
That being
more
said-
instability,
That
basically.
being said, it does do one thing. Implement basically every single policy idea on healthcare the Republicans have proposed in the last decade, which is approximately fuck and all except for,
Yeah.
insurance across state lines.
Well, again,
and bring back these
I don't think
terrible
anybody
catastrophic
knew
plans.
just how complicated healthcare was.
Well,
Yes,
yeah, it was.
yeah.
No
How
one
could
knew.
they have?
No one.
How could
No
they
one
have?
had known.
How could they?
You know. Yeah, and like it's just so. It's. I mean, obviously, the whole Trump administration is comical and nonsensical and just blundering idiots in a china shop, just breaking things because it's easy to break. But what's for me, it's like the rest of the actual Republicans in this. It's like, why even bother? Like I saw like the beginning of the press conference, and like Rand Paul got up there with his like curly hair, and it was like, I'm so excited. This is what I've been wanting. It's everything I've ever asked for, and I'm just super excited that my best friend Trump is here to sign it. And it's like, this guy is going to make fun of you in 2 minutes. And it's like, okay, you're having this big press conference to sign an executive order after the deadline for insurance companies for anything to happen next year, because we all know they wanted everything to happen like instantly. They wanted like, cause all of their drafts for their healthcare bills were all written with the dated of going into effect of June 1st, 2017.
Well,
so
I mean,
like you knew that they wanted to,
except all of the provisions didn't come into effect for 10 years, so that when it got scored by the CBO, they didn't say, it turns out this causes 100 million Americans to lose their insurance.
Yeah, but it's like, that they wanted like anything they did on healthcare to go into effect instantly. Like that's just what they've been writing in their own goddamn drafts. So it's like, okay, you do this 2 weeks after the deadline, after you failed for the final time, like the umpteenth time. So it's like, what is even the point of doing it now?
Being able to say they did something.
Okay, there you go. I guess
that's literally all it is.
That's all it is just to be able to say they did something.
Right, yeah. So now they can
through.
go into the 2018 election cycle.
Hey, look,
we did this. Yeah.
And they'll probably call it a repeal of Obamacare.
Oh, they most definitely will. I'm sure it's all over the Breitbarts and the Judge headlines already.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, it's just...
So also this week, beyond, that...
Wait, sorry, but one more question on this before we... Like, is this also legislatively, or does he have the executive authority to legislate this way?
The things that he actually put out there...
I don't think any of the things...
Yeah, no one's claimed that he doesn't yet.
Yeah, this also...
Yeah.
So someone might attempt to come up with a challenge in the next few days and put it through the courts, but right now I don't know of any actually challenging.
Yeah, none of the provisions that...
normally they're pretty quick to do that.
Well, no, the Republicans are pretty quick to do this. The Democrats
usually
think that like they can play nice and everything's gonna work out.
They also think things through a little more than the Republicans, I think.
I mean, to be fair though, usually when Trump comes up with something, it's so obviously an awful idea that the Democrats still have their criticism ready in like 10 minutes. Like, Constitution?
Yeah, the ACLU filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration for the birth control rollback, that regulation rollback, like within the hour after they had like announced it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they just have like a file of pre-written things waiting to be filed.
Well, because
when Trump does something.
most of these things, like they've like had been expecting, like the Iran, like backing out of the Iran deal, like they've already got something set, like signed and ready to go.
The Israeli Defense Forces have asked that we don't back out of the Iran nuclear deal.
Ew, that made...
Holy crap, right?
Yeah, right? Israel's like, no.
What?
Especially since we just backed out of that, what is it, UNESCO?
Yeah. Well, obviously, I mean, UNESCO have this odd idea that Palestinians are human beings and, deserving of rights.
Humans being humans?
And so, of course, America has left UNESCO. That's so horrible.
Everything is so horrible, like we said. Like, just constant...
I want a two-state solution. However, I don't ever see it happening.
Not with what we got in leadership right now.
Indeed. So, then our best friend Marshall Mathers.
I was gonna say, what Marshall are you talking about? The Marshall Plan? Because that one I did like.
That was a good Marshall.
Decides to go on BET on the Hip Hop Awards and freestyle some quite amazing words. I mean, every other word was fuck, and directed right at Donald Trump.
Also amazing word.
And of course, he starts it out with Eminem's own words. It's the calm, or with Trump's own words. It's the calm before the storm, right here. So I mean, it's great. There's the videos online. It was professionally shot. It's a wonderful little freestyle there. And I do like that after it aired and everything, Kaepernick tweeted at Eminem saying, "I appreciate you."
Yeah, because he called him out by name.
Yeah.
What I most appreciated about what Eminem did was that he called out his own fans.
Yeah.
He did. He told his own
Specifically.
fans that
And-
if
yeah.
you support Trump, then fuck you.
And I
He
think
can afford to do that now too, but still, that's still a huge thing to do, and there's a lot of money tied to that.
and,
So
and
yeah.
I don't and not necessarily money, but it's just that it's like, at some point
Telling people,
You got-
you
you
look
got-
up to me. You have to make that stand.
and also it's like you
yourself.
also have to start making these hard choices of like, okay, if someone's gonna continue, especially with like how Trump is just getting he keeps getting worse somehow.
He's
and, like,
only picking the situations where he can create the most drama, the most reaction.
but he's also
most
getting
volatility.
worse.
But he's not really digressing any systems either, right? He's not changing rules that are really like. So, for instance, not that he isn't, but the one he just went after was the when we talked about they just flip flop 60 minutes later. He's just looking for the reaction. He wanted to see people get upset about the birth control thing, right? That's not
Yeah, but
something
then
that could stick.
he doubles down by like treating Puerto Rico like shit. You know what I mean? So it's like
For sure,
he's still
Yeah, after
he's,
Pence says that, we're going to be there till the end, Trump says,
yeah,
we can't stay there forever
so it's
on
like,
Twitter.
Again,
so it's like he's
opposition's
still
defiant,
doing.
maybe,
So
yeah.
he's still doing things that are like like collectively, it's just becoming more and more apparent, and like you can't hide from him anymore. Like so, it's getting harder for people to say, "Oh, he's not this, he's not that, he doesn't mean it." It's like no, he is saying he means it this way, and he's doing it. So it's like I think it's very important for like especially people with like celebrity and fan bases to be like, "Hey, like here's the deal. This man is dangerous. Like." He is demonstrably dangerous, and what he's doing is literally hurting people and hurting human lives. And if you're going to continue to support that, then do not support me. Like, and hitting that in the money and like in the pockets because like, this is America, we're a capitalist system, great. Everything is like money.
Thank you, Adam Smith.
Yeah, so it's like everything's
No, I
money.
don't
So
think
it's
Adam
like
Smith would have approved of any of this shit.
yeah,
No,
like
no.
like so telling people I no longer want your money. Do not like that is very powerful. I think the most powerful
Yeah.
part of it.
It was a great statement. I'm there with him on everything he said too. I mean, if you read it, the transcript is online under the videos. You can also just find it by searching for it. But yeah, that was great.
And the
Thank you, Eminem, for
the non-shocker part of the whole thing. Oh, Trump's not responding. Gee.
What's that? Trump hasn't responded to the guy with 31 million followers on Twitter.
And who also like is a very successful white person like that he can't control.
Yep.
Oh, shocker. It's shocker that he's not attacking him.
So at DEF CON this year, we learned that something I already knew, being relatively techie myself, but that every voting machine we could possibly use that is electronic in nature is hackable, is easily hackable, is broken, is full of backdoors, and there isn't a single certified machine in the United States of America that hackers couldn't break into very quickly. In fact, so easy that one of the machines actually has a universal, unchangeable default admin password that you can find in Google simply by putting the model number, which is printed on the side of the box. And that password is username admin, password ABCDE. So that's just wonderful. That is the strength of our voting machines.
Yeah, but haven't we known how weak these machines are?
We knew they were bad, but this was
Being able to prove them in front of a big audience is
Hasn't
key.
it been
Also-
proven though? Like,
Well,
haven't
no,
they done
we knew
like?
that we
Yeah,
knew that
sure.
it was
You know,
theoretically
my mom didn't.
No. I mean, like the states, like the Secretary of States of like who have these machines.
Yeah,
like,
most of
didn't-
them don't care.
But yes,
Yeah, that's
true.
true.
But like, didn't they do like a whole sting showing
They
how?
did demonstrate that some of the types of machines could be hacked, and at least they demonstrated that it was
you could load
technically
votes, that
possible
you could bit flip votes,
under
things
the
like
right
that.
circumstances. This was different because it was literally they had what they called it, I think a voting village or voting machine village or something, and just had people come over and try and hack them. And it turned out that pretty much literally everyone could hack all of them.
So
The Atlantic Council, the International Affairs think tank that did a report about this, said, quote, participants with little prior knowledge and only limited tools and resources were quite capable of undermining the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of these systems, end quote. That is way beyond someone who really knows what they're doing with lots of preparation and under the right circumstances could arrange to hack one of these. These, like, anyone could do anything to these things at basically any time without any training, any preparation, any tools. Fuck it.
So, like, I'm super glad that since this report came out, that all states that use DEF CON all announced that they were going to get rid of DEF CON systems.
DEF CON is
DEF
the
CON
conference,
is
not the
a
main
conference,
no,
a
or the-
security conference.
Yeah, there are actually
They-
multiple different manufacturers.
Yeah, there's like 20 different manufacturers.
I thought wasn't it just one? But we've got rid of all of them, right?
No. There's many different. There's
So we got
many.
rid of all of the voting systems, right?
No.
All the states are still using them?
Every
Yeah.
single one of them.
Oh, okay. What the fuck?
Uh-huh.
Like, no, I knew that already, but
Guess
like
which one?
Yeah.
Guess which ones are about to be removed? Oh, right.
none of them.
So far. Now that this report is getting a little wider support, maybe one. Maybe one. There might be one state that decides to replace them with something less secure because that's really all that's going to happen.
It's probably it's probably gonna be
They'll
Delaware.
probably switch to a different manufacturer of electronic voting machine.
And they will all say Diebold on the side, and they will all be totally not secure.
Yes.
So like what?
So you can just, hack our voting systems by getting, near the devices. You don't even have to be like
Why
sophisticated.
are we even using electronic voting machines?
It
Like,
was supposed to be a big improvement originally over paper ballots because paper ballots involve a lot of, well, first of all, actual paper that has to be dealt with. There's a whole bunch of infrastructure devoted specifically to printing ballots, having people count ballots. There's issues with
It's
people
cheaper.
incorrectly filling out ballots.
It's cheaper and faster.
It's cheaper, it's faster. It in principle should be more reliable. Theoretically, you can have more fail safes that could make the voting system more secure. The problem is, well,
You
the
need
only thing they actually went for was making it cheaper.
Cheaper and faster.
you need
Yeah,
to
not
create the
secure.
fail safes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they looked at a piece of paper that listed all the theoretical benefits and went, "Oh, wow! It automatically comes with all these benefits."
Yeah, so that's our election system right there. It's ready to get hacked again.
See, I just don't like. I think if nothing ever becomes like technologically advanced, I think it's voting, like the voting process. Like I think that should be the one thing we preserve on paper. Like I know it takes a lot.
No, I honestly would be
You
strongly
can actually do it pretty secure, and you can have it print a paper trail and all kinds of other stuff for
in other countries that do the preparations
Yeah,
for
yeah.
it.
Right,
Like America's not
Like
exactly
Estonia.
known for that.
Yeah.
like Estonia,
And like other like
where they're doing their tech right.
Yes.
yeah. I was watching Samantha Bee last night. I don't know if you guys watch
Yeah.
her, but she's amazing.
Full
Yes.
frontal.
And they like talked about how like America just doesn't we don't put in like the work to protect ourselves like technology wise, and it's like all these other countries are hiring these these people these researchers from like MIT and like all these like tech companies to like improve their systems, and then we just like let our election machines get hacked. It's like we are just selling like political ads willy-nilly to anyone who wants them. Like
Quality of life is high enough. It's really hard to get large groups of people to pay attention to this stuff. It sucks.
Yeah, they don't feel they have enough on the line to justify
it's
disrupting their comfort.
it's insane.
It's a weird thing.
It is. And let's talk about disrupting comfort next. The big story of the week.
Yes.
Ah,
The big story of the week.
me getting kicked off of Facebook.
I mean, that is a story
It's the
of
big
the
story
week.
in my life right now.
I mean, for me, the big story of the week is, of course, Harvey Weinstein.
Oh, that piece of shit.
Yeah.
And the now 27 women who have come forward on the record. And obviously, most of Hollywood knew, and that is the most disturbing part. You can look online and you can look at Seth MacFarlane from the 2013 Oscars, where he makes a joke about the 5 women nominated for a category no longer have to worry about being attractive to Weinstein. And you can look at a 30 Rock episode.
Oh yeah, they've all.
Where they make a joke about how she has avoided the advances 3 out of 5 times and still has work of Weinstein. So Hollywood knew.
My favorite part was when I was kind of just like listening to CNN yesterday, and it was it was right after I think the the tape leak was broke, so everyone was like
Ronan Farrow's article in the New York Post.
and then there was the audio
or the New Yorker.
Yeah, and the
Not the
audio
Post.
came out
Horrible.
from the NYPD, and so it was Wolf was on, and he was talking to his panel, because that's all CNN does is have panels, and the way Wolf started it, he was like. He goes to Jeffrey Toobin, who was on. He goes, so what do you think? All this news that's breaking, and all of a sudden we're learning about these new allegations. And Jeffrey Toobin, to my surprise, goes, let me just stop you there, Wolf. All of a sudden, we've known about this for decades, and then brought up the Seth MacFarlane joke, brought up the 30 Rock joke, and he's like, this has been an open secret in Hollywood. He goes, so I don't know where you're getting this all of a sudden we're learning idea. And I was just like, ooh,
one of the things
did he
that
just
I find,
fact check live?
So one of the things that I find interesting here is kind of part of the power dynamic. And you look at like an Ashley Judd. She finally came like just directly forward on name, and she was one of the first really with her name in the papers.
Oh, she's been from the beginning.
Right, she's just really strong about it, right? And you can tell, I mean, if you look at the timelines of when she says it happened and when she stopped getting real starring roles in A-list movies was kind of about the same time.
No, so she reported him, right? So her story came out, and I think she was underage at the time as well, Ashley Judd. I think she was young.
Interesting.
I think she was under the she was one of the first people to come out publicly against him, and like how he came at her, and I think just tried to move on her, and I think she blocked it, and then in a discussion, she basically said, after she got nominated for, was it Big Girls Don't Cry?
Yeah.
It was after she got nominated for the Oscar, and I think she won, or she just got nominated. I can't remember. But then she privately was like, "You're forgiven." And so she's been like the first open actress, and like the first, and she's kept her name on it. Like, so it wasn't like she got the Oscar nomination, and I apologize, I don't know if she won or not. I can't remember. And then then removed her name. It was like, "Oh, I never said that." She was like, "No, that happened. He came after me." But it's like, it's water under the bridge now. But like, yeah, no, he tried to.
But then here's where the power dynamic really gets strange to me. And it's with a very specific person, and it's Gwyneth Paltrow. She comes from a very long line of powerful Hollywood people, including powerful Hollywood men. And the fact that Harvey Weinstein could get away with silencing her after attacking her, it really points to the idea that, it doesn't really matter who it is. Like,
it doesn't.
She should have, of all the women that had it happen to them, she should have found herself in the most powerful position to fight back.
Not if you feel powerless.
Right, exactly. But that's what I'm saying. Like, the simple
even
fact,
she couldn't.
the simple fact that someone from a long-standing, powerful Hollywood family who easily had as much power as Weinstein and her family didn't feel powerful enough to speak up.
But if Weinstein was really good friends with her family, and
right,
she saw him at
that to me was the mind blower. You with him, like everyone knows he did this, it seems, in Hollywood, and no one spoke out. But
well, it's not. People spoke out, but at the same time,
they got silenced.
Either people just kind of laughed it off, like, oh, that's Harvey. He's the sick predator. But if you want to get an Oscar movie, you're gonna have to eventually try to avoid his advances. Avoid his him sexually accosting you if you want to get the role. And there's a Harvey Weinstein in every industry. Yeah. This isn't and what I think the bigger picture is, this isn't unique to Hollywood. This is in every industry, and this will happen to both men and women.
Yeah, it's not unique to just women. James Van Der Beek and Terry Crews both came out saying this happens to us too.
And it's not even the same, and it's not even the same way. There was someone I saw on Facebook the other day who shared a story about how in a career his the career he retired from, someone viewed him as a threat to a sexual threat for a woman. So he was so his superior was felt that the only way to get the woman that he wanted was to basically blackball him out of the company or his job, and made his life living hell for the entire time he worked there until he basically quit because he couldn't take it anymore. So it's it's not always going to be the same sexual assault to men, but shit like that will happen to both men and women. And and this is in every industry, and this is on every level. If anyone has some type of power in a position, most people will abuse it at some point.
And I think people have to remember one of the reasons it's easiest to look away from all the time is that people forget there is some sort of linear thing to this. So, for instance, if you look at the number of child actors, especially young male actors from like the late 80s, early 90s, every one of those famous child actors, the most famous, the most powerful, that pulled 7-figure paychecks as children for movies, still had every part of their privacy and rights violated in so many situations, dozens and hundreds.
Corey Haim, Corey Feldman.
And not to you want to say like one thing's worse than the other. It just these are horrible things. People are victims, but the fact is that took a long time to come out. I think if people remember that that's something that came out not too long ago, that this is coming out now, maybe this is social progress in a way that it's at least people, the stories are getting out quicker and people have to keep paying attention. We really don't want to put our heads in the sand. It might be easier, more convenient, but in the long run, we have to keep looking at it, talking about it. It's uncomfortable, and that's kind of the whole point.
I think one of the things that's making me kind of uncomfortable about this is the fact that Ronan Farrow works for NBC, worked on the story at NBC, and they ended up not wanting to run it, and he had to go somewhere else to run this story.
I'm not shocked by that.
I'm not shocked by it. I'm bothered by it. Those are different things. And his response when asked was, "You'll have to ask NBC."
Which means that NBC probably wanted to squash it because they didn't want the Hollywood scandal to be like dragged. Because just recently, was it last week when this whole bombshell of Harvey Weinstein first got exposed in the New York Times, was the weekend of the Hollywood bus, the Inside Hollywood bus tape with Trump and NBC. And I'm maybe that wasn't entirely in play, but like I'm sure at some lines that was like a conscious thought. And and it sucks and it's bullshit and the sad part is Harvey Weinstein's probably not the only high power executive.
No, absolutely not.
And like so, I just think let's start fucking naming these like predators.
Also, I think it's very it's an sort of an illustrative example to see the NBC quashed this story. People often accuse NBC, MSNBC usually, but sometimes NBC and CNN and often the other networks, the over-the-air networks, not like Fox, but of being, liberal biased and blah, blah, blah. And you look at this and, okay, well, in this case, sure, they didn't cover a story regarding a Hollywood celebrity, but the reason they didn't cover the story, we all know that it got quashed because there were powerful people with connections and they didn't want to hurt, advertise. They were risking advertiser dollars. That was what they were concerned about.
And I'm sure Harvey
had the connections that they would have lost advertisers for going after him. And that was fundamentally why they made that decision.
Yeah.
And Harvey's money is probably like well invested in a lot of NBC.
Oh, of course. But the implications that has go beyond just the story. We all sort of in an abstract sense know that news networks kill stories that will risk them advertiser dollars. But this is just such a, reminder of the fact that does happen. And it's very rare that we hear about that story ever at all. And when we do, it's often long after.
Yeah, no, I'm glad they came out, like NBC got like kind of like, exposed for like not wanting to run this because it's a huge fucking story.
I still think they need to put out a statement about that.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Because why didn't you run it? How much money is involved in NBC of Harvey's that you decided that it wasn't a good idea for business to run the story? Because that's all it came down to was it wasn't good for business. Yeah. And then what I think is like, it's a little frustrating, but like, just because the way that the media is handling it is the fact that Harvey was such like a big Democrat donor, and they're trying to, and the right is trying.
Hillary's response was horrible, though.
Well, okay. First, before we start making this, let's start blaming a woman for a man's actions. The fact that the right is trying to make it a Democratic problem is frustrating because it's not.
No.
It's like, yes, he's a big Democratic donor, but guess what? We don't fucking care. Like the Democrats, like if they find out that a scumbag is donating money, get the fucking scumbag out of here and take your money. Most people have like started to give back the money. I know a lot of individual
or not give it back, donate it to someone else.
Yeah. And I know the DNC is trying to find out every like dollar of his that like where it's been circulated to like return it. And was it the UCLA? I think he had like made some. He was making some film institute where he wanted to promote women filmmakers of the future. and
Yeah.
he had invested $5 million, and I think it was UCLA, and UCLA shut it down, said we're no longer doing this, and here's your money back, like bye bye. And like it's just frustrating that like and like some of the the MSNBCs and the CNNs like are saying like, do Democrats have a Harvey Weinstein problem? No, because we don't want him.
Not only that, but like he was a guy that gave money on the basis of people supporting some causes that had nothing to do with any of the terrible things that he did. It wasn't like,
It wasn't like it was hush money.
Right. And it wasn't like
the only hush money gave was to the the district attorney. And also Trump's kids gave them hush money too.
Yeah.
And it isn't like, the idea was that, these people support these awful things I'm in favor of. Let me give them money for it. No, it isn't like the and it certainly isn't like the Democrats, ran him as a candidate and then elected him to an elected office after knowing about all this.
Yeah.
Like how on earth is this a problem with the Democrats?
Like they're only trying.
Well, I mean, it's not. It's just that's the message the Republicans would like people to believe.
I mean, to be fair, Malia, right?
I think so.
The eldest daughter of Obama, like she did intern with him, so I was kind of surprised why Michelle Obama didn't come out with like a statement like immediately being like, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean? I'm sure maybe like her publicist like squashed that original tweet that she wanted to like curse him out on. So I was a little surprised about how long it took for the Obamas to come out, just because they're like of the fact that their daughter like interned with his company. But I'm not gonna
I'm saddened by the amount of men who knew, I'm saddened by it, who got powerful enough that he couldn't hurt their career anymore. People like a Brad Pitt, who, if he spoke 8 years ago, that wouldn't have stopped his career. He would have just been hired by everyone but Harvey.
Yeah. But for a lot of people, out of sight, out of mind, or it's not my problem. It's not.
So Angelina Jolie is one of the women who have come forward.
Yeah, she was one of the featured in the New Yorker.
And she went home and told her then boyfriend, Brad Pitt, who then went back and threatened Harvey and told him, "You're not doing that again to her." So he's known for a very long time, since the 90s. And
Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt weren't dating in the 90s.
99, I believe.
No, they met on Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
No, they got back together on Mr. and Mr. Smith. That was them coming back together. They were actually together before that. Read the stories. They're all over the internet.
Go figure.
Well, he was with Jennifer Aniston for 10 years.
He was with Angelina Jolie when Harvey Weinstein did this, and he went and threatened Harvey Weinstein over it.
I don't know. I think you're.
No,
I don't know if it was in the 90s.
I've been paying attention. You're the one who said you didn't study beforehand.
No, I didn't study the executive
no worries.
order.
We're okay here. Don't worry about it. But we'll everyone else can just look
at
at
the timeline here. It says that Brad Pitt was cool as hell when they started dating, is cool as hell at the end. So that's all I've got.
Indeed, but
just added that on Wikipedia.
A lot of men of that power at this point in Hollywood knew and didn't do anything. That bothers me. And then Ben Affleck coming out and putting out a statement the other day also just was. I mean, I'm sorry, but after his brother and also himself.
Yeah.
I mean, what gave him the right to say anything like that?
And that's what got Rose McGowan suspended from Twitter.
Yeah, so Rose McGowan then responds to Ben Affleck.
Poignantly saying,
yes, might have violated the rules.
Ben Affleck, fuck you, or fuck off.
Yeah, and she gets like a 12-hour ban there, something like that, and
not 30 days.
Comes back, and her opening salvo when she comes back is to attack Jeff Bezos. And in a series of, I believe, 8 tweets, she says that her show that was supposed to go to Amazon Video was shut down, and it was stopped by Bezos because McGowan wanted Weinstein to have nothing to do with it, and Bezos was bringing Weinstein on to produce. And McGowan told Bezos specifically that Weinstein had raped her. And Bezos' response was supposedly that wasn't proven, to which she responded that she was the proof.
And she had a settlement.
And her show still got canceled.
And she had settled with him years before.
Yeah.
Like I know,
she
like
got $100,000.
No, I'm not saying like, but at the same time, it's like she brought.
That should be proof enough.
Yeah, like the fact that like she brought us like a case and it's settled is like, yeah, this fucking happened. And like what I love about like, I love that Rose McGowan is like, or she's at a point where there's no fucks given right now, because not only did she settle, in that settlement, she's like barred from speaking about this publicly, and she's doing so anyways, knowing that they can like try to come after her, and she's still like, nope, this is my truth. This is the truth. It's not gonna like, I'm not gonna be silenced any longer. And I just think that's like so amazing.
Like that always takes one person not giving a shit. This seems like, right?
And
So yeah. So Harvey Weinstein has now been fired. He originally was suspended from his position, awaiting, more details. And then he said he was going to sue for, defamation, libel, slander, or whatever. He was going to pick one of the wonderful three there and go after the New York Times and then the New Yorker. And then his brother and three others, good old Bob Weinstein, fired him on Sunday. And while that looked like it was about to happen, he reached out to a bunch of other bigwigs in Hollywood, like Jeffrey Katzenberg, former head of Disney, Dreamland, lots of power there. And Katzenberg actually released his email response, and you can read it. He sent it to the Hollywood Reporter. And it's a really interesting response where he says he's not going to speak out for him, and that if he wants some help actually making amends and trying to fix any of this, that he'll have that conversation, but that he's not going to do what Weinstein was asking. And I think it's really good that he put that out publicly, so we could all see what was actually said. What was interesting is that, Weinstein really opened the door for a response by asking, Katzenberg for help. And Katzenberg didn't know what to do. And so he reached out to all those other powerful people. And Katzenberg says that everyone said, you have to take this opportunity to tell him, what's what. And about an hour later, he did. So I think it's a really interesting read. Everyone should look it up. We'll put a link to it on the website. Yeah. Wow. I mean, 1 week, and he goes from easily one of the most powerful men in all of Hollywood, which makes him one of the most powerful men in the United States, to fired and running from allegations of rape.
These conversations and these situations take a long time to flesh out. Now it seems the
3 decades.
Yeah, and at least now it seems like people get that this is an ultra marathon. These are super marathons. These are not wind sprints, where you can just go, okay, maybe black people had it a little bit tougher. Okay, we said it once, now we can go. We're done. That's not really how it's institutionalized.
My question is this: if everyone knew, which is an easy assumption to make at this point, based on all of the real factual evidence and anecdotal evidence we have.
It sounds like a lot of people had heard something.
There was hearsay, there was anecdotes,
and like what they'd actually heard is a little questionable in a lot of cases.
But with how much was out there,
everyone had some idea.
The royal we, everyone knew, and multiple stories had been squashed. What was it that made the New York Times feel like this was the moment they could pounce?
There was a memo from the original article that came out, and it had to do with I think it was it was a woman. She had sent some memo to the HR to investigate the dozens of allegations over the years, and I think that like the New York Times got a hint of that memo and then started tracking it from there. But like anything else, look at Bill Cosby. It took 50 women before people started to, and it took a man to make a joke about Bill Cosby, almost a decade after a woman tried to press charges.
How strong is fear, right?
And to for people to start believing these victims.
That many people absolutely silent, and then how quickly does fear go away? Though I think is like the new message too, which is cool. But yeah,
but it's not even just the fear. It takes. Well, for Bill Cosby, it took a man.
Fear of their career as well.
But it also took a man to say a joke on stage to go viral before people were going, wait a minute, Bill Cosby did what? and then all of a sudden be like, there's how many women out there that he's assaulted, and then it's
there are people online right now calling Weinstein the White Cosby.
Yeah, he absolutely is.
So
And
I'd like to correct something here. I was wrong there. It wasn't Jolie who was Brad Pitt's boyfriend at the time. It was Paltrow who was Brad Pitt's boyfriend at the time. But for both of them, he went and yelled at Weinstein.
I would like to make that on the record.
Indeed.
GreggHoush just said he was wrong.
The smile on Gregg's face as he handed the phone the initial time, he was very happy. He thought he was right, but he wasn't overly happy. He was very happy,
but
though.
the smile on my face.
Yeah.
But so
Victory.
he was going there to support both of them, but it was Paltrow that was his girlfriend.
And now he's in Europe in sex rehab.
Yes.
He supported the girls he knew.
Sex is not what causes you to commit dozens and dozens of sexual crimes.
It definitely does not.
And also, can we just talk about his fucking apology? Like that he tried to, like his statement apology, like that he
I came of
age in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
It was a different time back then. You know who else came of age in the 60s and 70s?
Why did you even bother if you're going to come in that late?
An entire generation
Of people who don't do that.
Who are not sexual predators. Like
I mean, not the entire generation. There are
obviously there are sexual
like,
predators in
but
the
like,
generation,
there's
yes, the majority are not.
There's enough to be like, that's not a fucking excuse. My parents, I could be
never has been.
Mad Men is not the real world.
Yeah, and also I can assure you, my parents both grew up in the 60s and 70s. Never once committed a sexual crime.
Weirdly, I know
Not
a
that you know of.
surprising number of people
I know.
Harvey Weinstein's age who are not rapists. So
Yeah, it's a really weird thing that like all these people that came out of the 60s and 70s and they're not rapists.
Yeah, they grew up at a different time. It was a different age, and yet somehow still managed to not end up raping.
Just
anyone.
to take a positive spin on it real quick on a more serious note is that for the sake of what this will mean to the future is, it used to be that a Harvey Weinstein grew up in the industry, let's say, and became powerful with a certain impression of things, and as ego and grew it over time, he just more bravado, more ignorance, more arrogance. Now, his impression back then wasn't that Harvey Weinstein would be destroyed at the age of 55 or 60 because finally they'd catch up. That's not what Bill Cosby thought either. But now the narrative is for young actors or young producers and young people in these positions, at least hopefully that they see that and say, okay, that's not who I want to be at that age. So that's not the behavior I can have. It's not the road I can go.
Definitely getting kind of the message that, hey, eventually this might just catch up to you.
Especially the least unlikely
they
person,
didn't
right?
Used to get that
And I think
all.
the bigger message too is like we need more men to like speak up to, like
not just for the
That's
watch,
what I was saying about
Yeah.
people like Brad Pitt. People who knew and got to a position of power and then didn't do anything at that time. I can understand confronting him privately, but not going forward then. I can understand because he's in that same kind of position of fear that they were as a young actor. But at the point that he's pulling down $20 million a movie and that any other studio would hire him if Weinstein wasn't, at that point, he has the power to say
and at
something.
the point that his silence
and there were many men in that position. I'm not just calling out him. There were many men in that position.
And it's like and for like the men that like know it, like and even if they don't want to publicly say anything, like you need to confront these people
if you know
private.
it, you know it's going to keep on happening because of silence as well.
Yeah,
That's
like
huge consideration. It's got to be something that hopefully sits deep enough in people's gut and makes them sick enough that they, need to.
But like, it's sad that you have to have like someone like Rose McGowan who like puts her neck out there, and she's doing it knowingly and like bravely, and she should be commended for it. But she shouldn't have to be the one person to like stick her neck out of the line and risk
look at
everything.
Kaepernick too, though. So I mean,
and him too. And
it seems to be like that you've got to have that person, and I mean, but it's not just Rose. I mean, it really, if you want to talk about the people who started this, it's Rose and it's Ashley Judd. I mean, those two really were the two who spoke up loudly, really first, and I mean, you got to give that credit, But it does seem to take that person, that person who stands up and just gets vocal and is done with this shit.
If the right thing to do was
it shouldn't
easy,
take someone
then,
getting there.
Yeah, and if the right thing to do was easy, then like everyone would do it. So unfortunately.
Also, why people leaving Hollywood, even they're not going to act anymore, they're retiring, etc. They're really worried about reputation or not pissing people off that they won't say something on the way out too. That seems like an easy spot to step in there and be a hero. Like.
Well, some people just don't want to be bothered. Like, I mean,
all people don't want to be bothered because that's what this is.
Like these people, you have to remember that Hollywood is a community.
It's a very insular community.
All these people know each other. They're all part of the same social circles. If someone, even if someone's retiring, if they're leaving, if they come out and do this, then from their perspective, they're introducing all of this drama into the community. You know, sure, it was these terrible things were happening, but everyone is able to pretend it wasn't. So it wasn't causing their...
What's interesting is now, you know, knowing a bunch of them at this point and like actually having, you know, some relatively large names that I consider kind of friends. The one thing I've learned about that community is the reason they're really insular is, you know, it's the public's fault, but it's not really the public's fault. It's just the dynamic is you can't really be friends with the general public in any, you know, specific way, because you can't go hang out at Joe's place and go down to the bar with him, because you're gonna just get mauled by 100 people.
Or you just lose your celebrity.
Right, but so you need to have other friends who are celebrities, so you have someone to talk to, someone to be friends with. Like, humans are social creatures, so they've created this very insular kind of world where they can all be friends with each other. So I kind of understand the insular nature of it, but at the same time, you know, stirring the pot shouldn't cause you to be kicked out. It should be cause you to be like hailed as, you know, thank you for getting another toxic person out of our social, you know, circle.
And this happens at like a non-celebrity level too, like,
of course.
And because I remember when I used to work at Whole Foods, like, you know, there was a couple of times where someone would say something, being like, "Hey, that's not right," or "This person did that," and usually that person was in leadership, and then that person whoever spoke out either would get like written up or just, you know, just not harassed, but like kind of just like shamed. Like they would get shamed so hard that like they would either quit or they would transfer. And if you were not in bed like literally, but like in the metaphorical sense with with leadership, then anything you said they believed. And so if some person was like doing the wrong things or being like, you know, abusive or aggressive or hostile and like just kind of like a pain to work with, well, if the person that was in like close with leadership didn't didn't believe that, like then they would believe that person over the trouble person. So, you know, like this happens in all sorts of different senses. And, you know, we need to become more of a society that like discusses like these actual like issues and how to deal with them and how to confront them and how to say like put us, you know, like we don't really talk about like these things and like, you know, growing up, like, you know, sexual assault, consent,
understanding also the idea that, you know, we're biased towards people in what we perceive to be in groups. And so if you hear someone that's in your in group telling you something is one way, and someone in the out group is saying the exact opposite, even if the person in the out group has extensive evidence backing it up, psychologically you're very likely to reject everything they have to say and only listen to the person in the in group.
The pattern through all of that is just that every time someone hears what they don't want to hear or hears that they're not doing things the right way, they just don't want to hear anything from that person.
It's easy to believe what you want to believe,
really scary.
Especially when it's hard.
What I take from this is that people need to start speaking out more, especially other people in power. The people actually doing the harassment need to go jump off a fucking cliff head first.
And especially the people who know of victims, like
I understand the victim mentality of not actually speaking out,
not being comfortable to come out, but like if you know of someone victimizing people or one person, you have a responsibility to speak up, especially if you have
Hollywood like nominate someone who they know is not like a bad person, who is in a position of such power that they could not possibly get knocked down for it, to be the person that people have to come tell their stories to, and then he can, you know, destroy the people.
Why is going to be a he?
Or she, that's tough. You know, see,
because of the actual community.
Yep.
I mean,
because people won't believe them otherwise.
I know, right?
I mean, I'm just saying, like,
I'm
not trying to be a jerk. I'm just like, steps here.
Yeah, well, I mean, the steps.
I mean, I guess it could be like Oprah. I mean, she's powerful enough where it might work.
Yeah, but then again, just don't make fun of the dairy industry or the meat industry.
Yeah.
So,
you know, does Hollywood need to like actually like say you're an advocate now, and you know, I mean.
Or maybe Hollywood needs allies. I don't know. Like maybe we need like
no shit.
There needs to
be something.
There needs to be like a call center set up for like Hollywood. It's just like
you need to stop acting like Scientology as well, as far as the trying to insulate themselves.
What's the answer to this?
I
mean, the answer is people that need to fucking stop. But
step the fuck up and be good human beings.
But how do you get the victims feeling like they don't have to wait 30 years to finally, you know, come together?
By having other people step up that aren't in a position to being victimized.
Yeah.
These people need to step the fuck up. That's what needs.
So how do we get the other powerful people to step up?
They need to talk more. They need to use their platform.
Put it further out in the open.
Yeah.
Give them a platform where they're able to do that, and
Or they need
make
to-
it a regular piece of conversation. Once it becomes everyday banter, everyday convo,
and reach out to people and see if they can be a voice to someone that maybe needs help with their voice. Because like the thing like that not upset me, but like it's just one of those things where it's a glaring obvious is like the whole Twitter suspending Rose McGowan is like, okay, yeah, Twitter suspended her for like not violating anything just because she challenged.
You aren't allowed to swear at verified accounts.
That's what?
You aren't. It actually stops you sometimes if you're in the right client. But you can't swear at verified accounts. But a verified account doesn't have that filter, so it gets through.
That is
and
ridiculous.
that violates their term. Yeah, you can't tell a verified account to fuck off. If their moderators see it after a report, they will.
Oh yeah, that's ridiculous.
Greg, I can still tell you to fuck off here, buddy, but I won't do it. I want to take a step back. I want to ask a question.
So when my point was, so she had celebrity, which got Twitter's attention, which reinstated her account. But what about the hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of like Twitter, like women's accounts or in people's accounts on Twitter and on social media that don't have a celebrity, don't have a check mark, and who are getting harassed constantly, who have no like opportunity.
Sure. Back to the question that Greg said, like, how do we stop that? Kind of a passive question.
That wasn't my point at all. My point was
okay.
we need to start focusing on how to protect all women because guess what? Not everyone has celebrity. Not everyone has the choice to go to the papers and say this is what's happening to me, and people are doing nothing. So Twitter and social media need to get better at moderating all accounts and all users for everybody, not just for celebrities. That was my point.
Yeah. Absolutely.
My
And
point
of
was that we
course-
should start listening to people who have the opinion you have is actually literally what I was going to say. So I just kind of stopped halfway through and I was like, okay, I might as well actually,
I might as well stop listening to her so I can make my point about listening to people.
I might as well, hey, I'm Polish, but I stopped halfway through shit. I get 50% credit or something. I ain't trying to get Weinstein credit, don't worry.
I'm gonna say that the lights were just shut out in the building. Not in our room, but in the rest of the building. We're about an hour in now. So I'm going to call it for the evening. That's going to be episode 29, everyone.
I think so. Yeah,
We're going to come back next week and talk a whole lot more about this fun stuff. I'm sure, by then lawsuits will have actually been filed against him. The NYPD are actually opening an investigation again. So we will see what happens there.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's still out of the country, so I don't know how much we can do while he's out of the country. But if he never comes back, I won't miss him.
It can be like a Roman Polanski kind of a setup where he's stuck in France.
Him, Julian Assange, and Roman Polanski could hang out together.
At this point, yeah. Huh. There we go. All right, everyone. Listen to all of our fun stuff at the end here, and we will see you next week.
Thank you for listening. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GreggHoush Show and on Instagram at GreggHoush. If you like what you've heard and want to be a part of it, check out patreon.com/GreggHoush Show. In exchange for funding our programming, you gain access to exclusive content such as uncut editions of our podcast. We have new episodes every Thursday night. We hope you listen in. The GreggHoush Show was created by GreggHoush, executive produced by co-host Derek Gowrays, and co-hosted by Kayla Avery. Other contributors include producer and writer Anna Jeffrey, co-host producer David McGuffin, and writer-engineer Robert Tortora. Theme music for this show was produced and recorded by Geneva de Colbert. Our interns include co-host Casey McLaughlin, writer-engineer Alec Greeny, writer Maddie LoCicero, and associate producer, writer, and announcer William Kennedy. You're listening to New Revolutionary Radio, your call to action.